better job, and I don't know that you have really thought this out that well. And to not have it competitive, it should be a civil service position, if anything. And I would like you to rethink it and get more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak solely on this resolution, please step forward, state your name and address.
Danny McGill, Ward 1, District 1, Sisson Street. I agree with Ms. Rankins, and also I agree with the wording from Tom Malechko that I read in the paper, that he felt that more shared services should be involved. I'm all in favor of that. I'm not in favor of this, anything that does with the charter on that, although you may have the right to do so as a council, but I think something like this should be brought out as a referendum to the city people, because they were the ones who voted on it to begin with, the actual charter, the whole thing. So if you're going to mess around with something internally, even though a lot of these people aren't around anymore, it should go back to the public and see what they say. Nancy's last statement there was she doesn't think it was thought out too well. I don't either. You're talking $60,000 is what was mentioned, but you're not taking into consideration the words with benefits. So you're actually talking like $130,000. Now the mayor came out with his budget just recently that showed no increase. Okay, that's fine. But we're talking down the road. What are we going to do after that? We're always creating jobs. You know, when you're talking to the county and what they're doing, unless I'm misunderstanding, they're trying to do away or consolidate or do something on a basis. Now, my county taxes, for instance, are half of what the city is. It's hard to believe, but go figure it out. Maybe yours is too. But my city tax is almost double from what the county tax is. So it's nice to have a possible zero tax increase that shows for next year. What are we going to do after that? And what are we going to do after that down the road? So my feeling is, first of all, the referendum, I don't think we need as such. Shared services should be looked into, and I compliment Mr. Malechko for his comment that I read in the paper, which makes a whole lot of sense. You guys are always talking about shared services. So here's a good example of what we can do. One portion negotiating contracts, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my total opinion on this referendum. It should be brought out to the people. I urge you to table it and think about it a little more. I don't think there's a time factor involved other than what the mayor wants. But talk to your constituents. They're the ones who voted you in. They're the ones that you're going to be paying the price on the bottom line all the way through. So just think about it. Look at before you do anything. Think about all this stuff, all right? I appreciate the time. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Anybody else wishing to speak solely on this resolution, please step forward and state your name and address.
Take a little time to get there.
Take your time.
Thank you for your patience. My name is William Reardon, 3 Fairview Avenue. I lived around the city a little while. I've seen quite a few councilmen and mayors, and some have been good and some have been bad. But the point I want to make is, with all the people we have in City Hall now, I'm sure that with a little consolidation, this can be taken care of without creating another position. Positions are great when money is great, but everybody is looking forward today to taking, consolidating, and make the issue as small as you can so that when the tax rate comes out, that is a small issue too. The one we have today in the city has grown proportionately big. And I would like the council to consider the fact that put this aside, put a little more thought into it. And I'm sure that you can find enough people here in City Hall that this position can be taken care of without additional personnel added to the city council, or to the city payroll. And give it quite a bit of consideration, please, because you are like umpires in a football game. Your say is the last. We can talk all we want, but the final vote is yours. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, we don't have a replay booth either. Anybody? Anybody else wishing to speak just on this resolution? Please step forward, state your name and address.
James Moscato, 280 Lakeshore Drive West. Just to echo what everyone else has said here, at this time I do not feel this position is warranted. Without having the resolution in front of me, I did read it. The majority of the job description of that position is already handled in Mayville with, the different aspects of it. There are some of them that are unique to just the city. At a time when the city's going through a restructuring board, one of their big things is going to be, how can you consolidate, do more with less? The majority of that position is done in Mayville already. Human resources in Mayville, civil service, things of those natures. When you're asking all your other departments, your unions, your other city employees, how can you help us out to do more with less? And now you want to create a position that's looking at 60,000 plus. I just don't think it's warranted at this time. There's some things that in that description that were unique, like I said, to the city, which understandable. You're going to need them. Look within. But at this time, I just don't feel this position is warranted. Thank you.
Just on this resolution alone, please step forward and state your name and address. Seeing none, public hearing for resolution 96-217 is now closed. Notice of public hearing. Please take notice at regular meeting of the City of Dunkirk Common Council held on October 3rd, 2017. Resolution 97-2017. Council, which resolution is compensation and benefits focus. Please take further notice that a public hearing will be held on resolution number 97-2017 on October 17, 2017 at 5:25 p.m. in the Common Council chambers to hear any and all interested parties. The public hearing regarding resolution 97-2017 is now open. If anybody wishes to speak, please step forward and state your name and address. Again, we are speaking just about that particular resolution. Where's yours, dear?
I think you can hear me. Listen, I was here about a year ago representing the incubator, Fredonia Technology Incubator, which we formed, and Nicole Waite had put it together with Randy and I and Chuck O'Connell, Chuck Cornell, and so I'm back this time to a year later exactly, telling, I'm not going to say all we accomplished, but we did a lot, whether it was the road, whether it's the water, whatever. And I'm listening to the original Sandy will take over after me. I'm listening about the regional water. I happen to be on that board.
If I can stop you for 1 second, ma'am?
No.
This is
What
just
I'm
to speak
saying,
about
no,
the
I
personnel
know that is.
administrator.
But what I'm saying, the consolidation is what I'm talking about. There's money from Governor Cuomo. It's in the paper, it shows our mayor here.
This isn't the time though yet, Valerie.
$2.5 million is what we're gonna cover on. We don't need to go with
This is still-
Fredonia, like our councilman said that way. No. We go, Central Avenue is the main road. With the hospital, with the incubator, whatever.
I
But
have
what
to
I'm
stop you
saying
because this
is,
is just for resolution number 97. That's all we're supposed to be speaking about.
but anyway, I just want to say we keep on going with other things, and Sandy's going to speak, and she's going to need 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Anybody else wishing to speak just on Resolution 97? Personnel Administrator, please step forward, state your name and address.
Nancy Randall, 520 Central. I don't know why the two of them probably weren't together because they are affected. I know my husband was in that position. I don't know why you're changing it. I know a great deal of thought went into that with civil service, and I would like you to reconsider that, especially since I believe Roger is retiring. So please reconsider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rankins. Anybody else wishing to speak just to Resolution 97? Please step forward and state your name and address. Last opportunity, Resolution 97. Please step forward, state your name and address. Seeing none, public hearing for Resolution 97-2017 is hereby closed. Notice of public hearing. Please take notice that a regular meeting of the City of Dunkirk Common Council held on October 3rd, 2017, Resolution 98-2017 was presented to the Common Council, which resolution is entitled, Consent to Initiate Charter Revision, Clarification on Code Enforcement and Zoning Officer Position. Please take further notice that a public hearing will be held on Resolution number 98-2017 on October 17th, 2017, at 5:30 p.m. in the Common Council chambers to hear any and all interested persons. At this point in time, public hearing for Resolution 98-2017 is now open. If anybody wishes to speak only to that resolution, please step forward and state your name and address.
Again, we're talking Resolution 98, 2017, correct?
You got it.
Okay. Once again, I want to reiterate the fact about anything you're doing with the charter, I think it should come to the public. And you're on a referendum vote. I think, as I mentioned before, I think the council may have the right to change these things legally, but I don't think it's right. Anytime, like I said before, anytime you're messing with the charter, which is the backbone of the city, regardless of what we're talking about, should come to the public for a vote. All these resolutions tonight actually are together on what I'm trying to say, so that's what I want to do. Think about the public. They have the right to ballot.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Anybody else wishing to speak only to Resolution number 98-2017, please step forward and state your name and address. Last opportunity. Anybody wishing to speak, please step forward and state your name and address. Seeing none, public hearing for Resolution number 98-2017 is hereby closed. Call to order, Common Council meeting, October 17th, 2017, at 5:36 p.m. Clerk call the, Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Here.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Here.
Councilmember at-large Vowishin.
Present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Certification of the prior meetings.
This is to certify that an official copy of the minutes of the Common Council meeting of Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017 was presented to the mayor on Thursday, October 12th, 2017. Pursuant to Section 3.03 of the Dunkirk City Charter, all items presented to the mayor are now in full force and effect. In witness whereof, I have hereto set my hand and seal of the City of Dunkirk, New York, to this 17th day of October 2017.
I need a motion dispensing with the reading of the minutes. First by Councilman Gonzalez, second by Councilman Williams. Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Vowishin.
Aye. Reading of the privilege of the floor regulations.
The privilege of the floor shall be extended to any person appearing for themselves, in which case the individual shall be limited to 3 minutes, and to any person representing a group who shall be limited to 5 minutes. When recognized, please stand and state your name and address. The city clerk shall have the duty of maintaining such time limits, and the councilman at large may determine in his discretion whether individuals are speaking for themselves or representing groups. Councilman at large volition shall maintain good order and may require any speaker to cease speaking if remarks are made in bad taste or are slanderous or non-germane to any action taken or contemplated by council. The time limits specified above shall be strictly adhered to, except that a speaker may be allowed to complete a statement or thought started before such time has expired.
Okay, with that said, privilege of the floor is now open. However, I'd like to remind everybody that an individual is timed at 3 minutes, and a group or a representative of a group is timed at 5 minutes. We do have people in the crowd today. We've had a long public hearing. We've had a long workshop session as well. So to give everybody an opportunity to speak, please keep that in mind, 3 minutes and 5 minutes. Other than that, if you'd like to speak to anything, please step forward to the microphone and podium, and state your name and address.
Okay, what I said in the beginning is fine, but I have some good news to report, and our Mr. Lechko, the assessor, is gonna work with it, with Mr. Randy Woodbury and Mr. Groh. And I have a package for you after. Becky, my daughter Becky and I, we went to the new store, what's it called, Broxton, I think it is, in Erie, Pennsylvania. So we went to fight for the store to come here, since Penny's left everything else. We stayed like 5.5 hours, and we were very impressed because they have 46 stores, one from, the latest is Erie, now they want one from Erie to Utica, New York. And we're in a running with Buffalo. But we have an advantage of Buffalo because we don't have any tax floating. And so my daughter Becky has been relating up and back with them, and so has Mr. Lechko, thank God. And he's going to go into it further and has to find the tax base, what we have around here. And we have to include the town of Dunkirk, not ship them to Fredonia. And they have to work with us because it's so much on this. And it was sad when we saw what Fredonia's got to, town of Dunkirk's got to go to Fredonia.
It hasn't worked, ever.
Forget it. We're like brother and sisters in this area and on the harbor front. So we're going to need them too for finding land to join with them. So I will be giving the packet to Mr. Lechko. And go for it, kiddo. And we got it. We more or less got the store coming. Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Good job, Tom. Thank you.
Good evening, Diane Andrasik, 23 Wilson Avenue in Dunkirk. I come to speak in regard to some of the comments I saw in today's paper regarding the Brooks Hospital situation, and I come to state these words as city historian. In 1886, the Young Men's Association formed a group in Dunkirk. It was a civic-minded group comprised of young professionals who lived and worked in the city of Dunkirk, doctors and lawyers and bankers, and the group dedicated itself to the furthering of, quote, the material and intellectual welfare of Dunkirk, unquote, in order to make, quote, permanent improvement in the city, end quote. In time, this group raised funds for city improvements through lectures, helped establish and improve Washington Park, helped establish the Dunkirk Free Library, and in 1898, the widow and daughters of Horatio G. Brooks, the founder and Dunkirk's first mayor, gave their impressive mansion at 6th and Central and its property to the group for the purpose of establishing Dunkirk's first hospital. The group helped the city wrangle through the paperwork needed to finalize incorporation of the Brooks Memorial Hospital, which opened in 1899. In the 1940s, that building and its annex had outgrown its usefulness as a hospital. It was, of course, an old mansion. And again, civic-minded people in the city of Dunkirk worked to build the modern hospital in the place of that older building. And then a later generation added to that hospital, all efforts centering and emanating from that location in the city of Dunkirk. The key words here, I think, are the words that emphasize the city of Dunkirk. The city of Dunkirk and its leadership and its inhabitants and the hospital board and its professional staff
and its supporting communities, such as the Women of the Brooks Auxiliary, of which I'm a member, worked to create a much-needed hospital and the space eventually needed for its expansion, including parking space. All those continue to support the hospital through fundraising efforts since the beginning of the hospital's existence. Now it's slated to be gone. Why? Of course, everything has changed. Our society is not the same it was in 1899. Medical variations have changed, financial situations have changed, history changes. But I think most of all, those kinds of people dedicated to the city itself are lacking. Those making decisions today take little account of what the early founders and supporters of the hospital took into consideration to continue a tradition. Tradition seems to be not important. Other matters seem to be more important. Most of all, missing are the words that motivated the Young Men's Association. There was little of the desire to further the material and intellectual welfare of the city in order to make permanent improvement in the city. I lament the fact that the link has been broken. Indeed, this will be a historic change if it goes forward, and it bodes negatively for our city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Very well written. You should have been an English teacher.
Thank you, Ms. Andrasik.
My name is Sandra Trapasto, live at 60 East Front Street. And I'd like to address Dunkirk's Mayor Roses and the Common Council. As a longtime member of Dunkirk's Revitalization Committee, I have seen many beautiful changes happen in Dunkirk, New York. These include improvements to our water filtration plant, our waterfront seawall, paving of Route 60, building a new road to Perina Industrial Complex, new bicycle trails, beautiful flowers around downtown, improvement to land and to own housing, and other important projects. I am here tonight to oppose the moving of Brooks Memorial Hospital from our community. I believe it is the life-giving pulse that makes our quality of life in Dunkirk, Fredonia, and surrounding areas give meaning. It joins our communities and has offered refuge and healing to many. We are close to Lake Erie, Route 5, Route 20, New York State Thruway, Fredonia Universities, JCC, 4 high schools, middle school, many grade schools, supermarkets, plaza, and industries. I am opposed because we would be forfeiting an adequate 69-plus bed hospital that could take care of our community's needs versus the small feeder 29-bed dropout hospital, which would send patients to other hospitals in Jamestown, Erie, Pennsylvania, and Buffalo, New York by ambulance or helicopter. What about inclement weather? What are your chances of surviving? On multiple occasions, all the beds in Brooks Memorial Hospital were taken. So people who should have been admitted were turned away with the option of either going home or going to other hospitals miles away. If 69 plus beds were not adequate to serve those in need, how would 29 beds in this new hospital solve the problem? Healing of patients comes from those who are loving and dedicated to their profession. Having a new structure, half its size, with new, faster computers, wider doorways, doesn't always meet the needs of patients. Many that should be admitted and stabilized are having their health being compromised by incorrectly moving them to another locality. They are then isolated away from their families. Heart attack patients should remain still, not jostled about. Brooks Memorial Hospital once had 500 employees, and they added to the city's economy and tax base. They were valuable people with much to give. In the Middle Ages, good health care was given by torchlight and portable water because they cared about their fellow men. It seems, what I'm saying is that it's not always important to have a beautiful hospital. It's just the loving people who care for the patients, which brings healing. It seems now that the only important thing is the bottom line. In Obamacare legislation, death panels were included, and this was to come about by rationing. Another form of rationing is to remove the hospital and replace it with a smaller one where people would really have to wait for care. Those who think you don't have the need for a hospital the size of Brooks, don't be mistaken. You can keep your immunity up, stay fit, but you'll never know when you may sustain an injury, have an allergy, fatal side effect, be in a riot, have a contagion take over, or God forbid, war. We have money to remodel. Let's do it. It would be the biggest mistake to give up our beautiful Brooks Memorial Hospital. By the way, do the citizens ever have any say about this? The people who pay the taxes?
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you, I'm Christina Rain. I live in 78 West 2nd Street. I go to Brooks Hospital for blood work. My sisters were born in the hospital. I don't like it when you guys moving it. We should have, people could sign and you can vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to take advantage or privilege of the floor, please step forward and state your name and address.
Gary Settlemar, 150 West 5th Street. It comes to my mind, there's two factions. Moving the hospital, the traffic there is horrible already. The state was talking about putting a roundabout on 60 and 20. Just, can you imagine, there've been a 1013 with an MV 1013. So you have semis come around, if they do put that roundabout in. The congestion is absolutely horrible. I think there's nothing wrong with Brooks Hospital is now. Is it a case that Brooks has money, we got to spend it? It really comes into play. I realize the council has limited ability to, with their input, but really think about it. I think it's a very bad choice to put it on Main Street. I think they're going to regret if they ever do go with it.
I agree with
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Gary.
Sorry to bug you again, folks. Danny McGill, 111 Sisson Street, Ward 1, District 1. I basically want to comment on this factor to kind of back up Councilman Williams on his thoughts that I read in the paper today. I understand, and I want to reiterate the fact that I personally understand that you folks don't have anything to say about this. I understand that, and I think everybody else should too. What we're dealing with is comments that we should inject as the city of Dunkirk, as Mr. Williams said, to pose our view. I find it kind of amazing the location that was found that they decided on out there on Route 20, because after reading an article in the Observer not too long afterwards, was the fact that the neighbors didn't even know that this building was going to be, or this hospital was going to be there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, in the city, if somebody was going to do something around my area, and I had certain variables, I forget what it is, within the reach of that, I have a right to protest that or make comments at hearings and whatnot. This wasn't even done, so I don't know who was part of this committee or what, but to me it doesn't make sense, the location. The gentleman before me mentioned about the roundabout. Can you imagine the disaster on that? And they said, well, the traffic isn't that bad compared to Irving. Well, Irving doesn't have the traffic like it's up there. That's another issue, but thanks to McDonald's, you know, he did the work on putting a hold on that. And I think something should be along the way. I know if I was the neighbor on this location that was going to be, you'd hear from me in court on my views, because like I had mentioned, that if we lived in the city of Dunkirk, we have a zoning law, that we have the right to come forward and make our opinion. They had no right what's going on. But most of all, I wanted to back up Councilman Williams on what I read today. It makes sense, and I think the city should go for whatever possible means that they can to make their point across. The state of New York and Governor Cuomo, of course, gave what, $73 million to build this hospital, and they found this location? Give me a break. I mean, I go by Route 60 and I see all those vacant lots over there. Now, I don't know if there was a price play in there somewhere along the way, but that area there would have been great. It had everything going for it, close to the thruway, close to the other areas, going down to Main Street and everything. But once again, I want to reiterate the fact that I do understand personally that you folks don't have anything to say about it. The decision was already made, but I think they should have asked you, if they didn't, your comments and your input. They seem to ask everybody else except city fathers. So I'd like to see you guys pursue some action, whether it's going to happen or not. I mean, listen to you, but they backed out on a lot of things. And the state of New York should know that if you're spending this kind of money, the location they chose, come on, they can do better than that. It should be with the city and its location. Remember what they said in the very beginning about the location? It should be between Dunkirk, Fredonia, whatever. The Route 60 area would have been fantastic for everybody. So I don't know, but use your power, whatever it can be, to follow through. I think the city of Dunkirk deserves it. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
Thanks, Dan.
There's another gentleman that's, oop.
This is all been presented to.
3 minutes this time.
I'm sorry.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Presented to our state controller and to our attorney general. This is all in his hands because he helped us with the land bank, which was being misused, and now it's together with Crick and what, and we're on board. But this part, like controller told me, that money is coming from the state and it can be used for remodeling. The horror stories we are hearing about it there, where a 91-year-old woman, her nephew came to take her to the hospital. She had pains in her chest, and she said, I don't want to go. And her nephew said, come on. It was about 10 o'clock at night. Come. They'll only look at you, and you stay overnight. They took her by ambulance. The hospital would not let her in. 10 o'clock at night, they told them, the ambulance, she has to fly to Buffalo. Now, she thought she's having a heart attack because the pain's in the chest. She cried. She wanted to go home. The hospital said, we have nobody on call, and we cannot admit you. So she cried, and her nephew took her to, they flew to Buffalo, a helicopter. She died the next morning with a heart attack. It's only one horror story. The other one horror story I must tell is somebody with cancer is on remission right now. His doctor said, I cannot treat you anymore. And he said, why? Because I'm not allowed in the hospital. And he was very upset. So I said, who's your doctor? Happens to be Dr. Kosako, that's on the board member. So there's horror stories, and state controller, I'll guarantee you right here, will take care of this. And we'll keep our hospital, remodel it, and all the doctors will come back the way they're supposed to. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to take advantage or privilege of the floor, please step forward and state your name and address.
Yes, Pete Kamada, 12 McDonald, 4th Ward. I just want to say that Horatio Brooks is probably rolling over in his grave. I look around at the city and it's being gutted. Gutted. My impression was that we were supposed to have shovel-ready jobs or shovel-ready properties here. Why wasn't that pushed? There's all kind of property in Dunkirk. You mean to tell me the hospital couldn't find something in Dunkirk? I just find it just impossible to believe. We have a brand-new empty office building on Franklin Avenue. We have an empty building, as far as I know, on Willowbrook. We have the power plant that's idle, a multi-million-dollar power plant that's idle, and everybody out here is too busy worrying about dog parks and bike paths. I wish something would be done. The important thing for Dunkirk is jobs, and nothing else counts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
My name is Diana, and I live on Fredonia, Stockton Road. I just, okay, I've never been here, so this is new for me. I read about this in the paper, and it was pretty fast, and I saw the notice today about this hearing. And being up on Fredonia, Stockton Road, I was stunned at where they were putting this. We heard nothing about it, no, like they were saying, there's no one that could ask our opinions or sign it or put it to vote or do anything like this. This is a very small, congested area across from a small Sears with the Owls Homes parking lot. It is so small. It's going to be huge, a problem for ambulances to get in and out, school buses in and out. It cannot support this. I don't understand that. I come from Baltimore, Maryland years ago, and I've seen things that change. This is not a positive thing. There are so many places, and where can we go to voice this to try to fight it? Can we put that in the paper? Where do we go? Where can we sign things? What do we do to put, I'm all for doing it, but look at all our doctors. They've all moved to be around Brooks's. I have a lot of doctors that moved down here to be by Brooks. Now what are they going to do? Right. Now they have to move, or we all have to move. I just think this is a bad deal all the way around. I just wanted to voice it, and I rushed to get here from Fredonia, Stockton, so thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak, please step forward and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Skeeter Tower. I live in the neighborhood of Brooks Hospital. It was one of the amenities of the city that attracted me here when I moved as a senior citizen. I actually love the story of how the hospital started with Horatio Brooks, who added so much to this city. And when the hospital petitioned to expand a few years ago and double the size of its parking lot, our neighborhood association did not resist this. We supported it because we wanted to support our city hospital. How ironic that now, just a few years later, they have a huge parking lot and they're planning to leave and abandon the city. I had read somewhere in the paper that the new wing was constructed, that it would sustain an addition on top of it. It would seem to me that that would make sense to add on where the hospital currently is, where it's serving the needs of our population. I'm sorry that if we don't have much to say about it, but that's how I think about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Skeeter.
Thanks, Skeeter.
Anybody else wishing to speak, please step forward, state your name and address.
We've spoken once before I've been up 3 times now. Nancy Rankins, 528 Central. I wasn't going to speak about this because I've said in the paper and I've talked to people, but did you ever have a chance to meet with the board of directors? We're meeting with you and it's after the fact. And I'm not blaming you, but I think at some point you should have met with the board of directors. I tried to get the names and I got 4 names and I'm sure that's not the whole board, so. But, no, I'm against where they're putting it. If they're not going to, that money, I'm sorry, is for you, because they explained that to me. And, but I'm sorry that they're not moving it to 60, because I think that is a safer place too. Yep. And it is between the 2 communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to take advantage or privilege of the floor, please step forward and state your name and address. Anybody else wishing to take advantage or privilege of the floor, please step forward and state your name and address. Third and final opportunity. Anybody else wishing to take advantage or privilege of the floor, please step forward and state your name and address. Seeing none, privilege of the floor is now closed. Communications from the mayor, including disapproval messages.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to respond to a few comments made earlier this evening. Number one, with reference to the hospital, yes, we did meet with the board, and unfortunately, we were unable to convince them to build the hospital in the city at one of the 3 sites that we did show them. The city has also sent a letter to the governor. We've had discussion with state representatives and our elected officials at the state level, since it is state funds that are being used to move the hospital. In my opinion, we've done everything that we possibly can to try to keep the hospital here in the city of Dunkirk. And unfortunately, the board has decided to take it outside the city. But I thought I should make it clear that we have been doing our due diligence to try to keep the hospital here. And also, there were comments made to some of the resolutions that we're going to be discussing, I guess, later on, so I will save my responses to later if I can speak.
Sure.
Thank you. I have 2 updates for council. I would like one of them to be, I'll defer one of them to the planning director and the other to our special events coordinator.
I just wanted to, before I get into these announcements, kind of make the public aware that when I first came into this position, September of 2016, I was given a timeline, and we were given a timeline of 2 weeks to come up with alternative locations for Brooks Hospital. So all of our departments worked together to come up with, within 2 weeks, locations, alternative locations for Brooks Hospital. Unfortunately, I thought we put together a tremendous presentation, and we made a lot of cases that, of course, the history, we should keep it within the city, the fact that we have infrastructure already in place, we had locations, we have these brownfield sites. I hear what all of you are saying, and we tried very, very hard. So I get emotional because I understand that this location is important. So I just want to make the public aware that we did try.
Thank you, Ms. Janice, but you're doing everything you can, and it's not done. It's at the state general and comptroller. We're going to win.
You know, and even if we can't save it from this location, we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that that property has the correct use. We will gain the public input. We will make sure that something goes there that is the best solution for our city. So, unfortunately...
Can we give the money back to the state?
Unfortunately, we can't control where they're going, and we tried, but that's what it came down to.
We are
On a positive note, I'd like to announce our smart growth funds that we were awarded $2.5 million to go towards waterfront development. We're going to be working in accordance with Empire State Development on waterfront projects to create downtown waterfront that appeals to all. The Harborfront is our first phase of this downtown revitalization effort, and we're going to be working on this effort to catalyze future development on our Central Avenue and Central Business District. Our DRI grant application will be available online, so I would urge everyone to look at that DRI application and the future development opportunities that are going to be coming to our city on a positive note. In addition, we are going to be moving forward on our comprehensive planning efforts, and we just hired a consultant to be helping with this comprehensive plan. We went through a long process of selecting this consultant. We had 7 great proposals, and our planning advisory committee came up with, our final consultant, LaBerge Group, to help us in this planning endeavor. So moving in the right direction on that. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? We need for the board, listen, we need the city administration to go back and ask again. You cannot go against.
Please take a seat there. Thank you. Mayor, floor is still yours.
We have another announcement to make. First of all, I wanted to sympathize with the crowd here with the situation with the hospital. Those funds were sent to the hospital, not to the city of Dunkirk. On another note, there was a press release done today. We've been working very hard in the development department, and following a directive and order from the mayor, Rosas, to solicit funds and some donated goods for not only Hurricane Harvey, but the situation in Puerto Rico. And we were able to already raise over $12,000 cash. And I also solicited the social media and was able to make a connection with a woman who was formerly lived here in Dunkirk and is the philanthropist of the organization, an international organization called Globus Relief. And they are donating pallets of medical supplies to us, each pallet costing over $12,000 each, for a total of almost $350,000 in medical supplies that would be shipped to Puerto Rico. It's on its way to Dunkirk, New York as we speak. It should be arriving here Thursday by noon. So we've been working very hard, diligently in the development department, the planning development department, per the directive the Mayor Rosas issued, and those 26 pallets with a truck donated by Agricultural Transport and Jacob Sam out of Dunkirk, New York, who went up to Utah and picked up the supplies at the warehouse, loaded up the truck, and as I said, that truck will drive into this area Thursday right around noon. The press release went out. We've been inundated with calls from all the media, TV stations, and we haven't been able to answer those questions because of the many meetings that we've had today. So I'm sure that as soon as we get out of here, there's going to be some more questions to answer. The shipping cost was over $50,000 for these supplies. Those shipping costs were waived thanks to the efforts of and the collaboration of Mayor Rosas and the Governor Andrew Cuomo and his staff, and Sam Hoyt at Empire State Development was influential also. And we can't thank Governor Cuomo enough for having waived those fees. Once the truck arrives at Dunkirk, that truck will then appear and be finally delivered to the National Guard and United States Armory in Buffalo, where those supplies will be either Chinooked or 10-wheeled out in National Guard and United States Army gear and equipment all the way to the port, on its way to Puerto Rico. So we've been really working hard to make sure those supplies are dispersed to the hospitals in need. If you follow the television coverage of it, many hospitals have supplies have still not been replenished. So we've been working hard to make something happen there, okay? Just wanted to say that the mayor deserves some recognition for getting this done for us. We also want to thank the many organizations which work collaboratively with us, including the Mayor Byron Brown out of Buffalo, Kaz Rodriguez out of the Hispanic Heritage Council, the Hope Hispanic Organized for Progress in Education, right here serving Western New York and the city of Dunkirk, Agricultural Transport, Goya Trucking, Friends of Jamestown, New York through Vidal Colon, Hispanics United of Buffalo, the Puerto Rican Action Committee Association out of Buffalo, Panorama Hispano News, Hispanic Community Coalition, and all of those involved in this great humanitarian effort in Western New York, showing the aid and the love of our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico during their time of need. Thank you very much.
I would also, Mr. Chairman, like to give special recognition to our city clerk, Ed Ramos, and all of the citizens in the city, the Dunkirk Fire Department who came out and helped out. There were so many people that were receptive to helping out, and it's just great to see the community come together for a common cause. So Ed Ramos, I appreciate the help that you did. again, there was a lot of help from a lot of different people in our community and in surrounding communities. It was a collaborative effort, and I was very proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's it.
Thank you.
Communications from the public and petitions.
Notice of summons from Lance J. Baranakant for personal injuries allegedly sustained while riding a bicycle in the area of Wright Park on or about June 19, 2016.
Any discussion, council? Seeing none, I'd make a motion to refer this to the Law Department. First by Councilman Williams, the second by Councilman Gonzalez. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa?
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Verwishen?
Aye.
Notice of claim from Hartford Central Recovery Offices for reimbursement of the amount they paid to their insured Eugene M. Molly and Molly J. Hamernick for alleged damages to their vehicle.
Any discussion, council? Seeing none, make a motion to refer this to the Law Department. Need a first by Councilwoman Shikawa. Need a second by Councilman Williams. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa?
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Verwishen?
Aye.
Number 3, request from the Dunkirk City School District requesting 2 police officers for their home high school playoff football game on Friday, October 20th, 2017, from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m.
Any discussion, council? Make a motion to refer this to the Police Department. First by Councilman Bamanto, second by Councilman Gonzalez. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa?
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Verwishen?
Aye. Reports of standing committees, boards, and commissions. Councilman Williams, the floor is yours.
Hector, wanted to find out, I hear that you made contact with the Kosciuszko Club about trying to make things right with them. I hear that they're pretty happy. If you can expand on what's going on there.
We reached out, if, for those of you who don't know, the Kosciuszko Club had the date that was a rain out, and then when we rescheduled it, they had another rain out, and the weather wasn't up to par. So, per Councilman Williams, we decided to reach out to Kosciuszko, and I guess they're going to have a festivity at their club grounds on November 3rd, and the City of Dunkirk will be there in full support of that event here in the special events and the Dunkirk Festivals Division of the Planning and Development Department. So.
Okay, thank you. And Randy, would you be able to make it to the East Cedar Street site there about the turnaround?
Yes. In fact, I took 2 experts from the Development Department with me, and we took a look at that. And it turns out it's already on their plan to improve with the Wright Park amenities improvements. So, and then I spoke with a gentleman who you referred me to, and we had a very pleasant conversation. And all the improvements that are going to be done there will be to his satisfaction and will benefit the city. And also, we'll be able to do that without using any city tax dollars.
Okay, good, thank you. And then last I have for Mark, can you give us an update on how we're coming along with the Acela upgrade?
We've reached
Formerly KVS for
KVS Excella, and now there's also another company involved.
Oh, now there's another one.
We have reached out to them. We're still waiting for a response as to a time frame to finalize the conversion process.
All right. Is that update tied to whether we can go and have internet payments or credit card payments? Do we have to have the upgrade to make that?
We most likely would not need the upgrade to do that. It is a staffing issue, though, that would need to be addressed. I've spoken with the city clerk and talked to 2 individuals at the county level so that we could possibly spend some time with the County Department of Finance for credit card and electronic payments, just to observe their procedures and policies, see how we could possibly implement some of those procedures or expand on them or whatever it may take.
Okay, because I'm hearing a lot of talk out in the public from the residents, and they seem to want to have some type of either online or credit card payment. So
fully understood. And again, I mean, we're doing what we're doing to keep the cost down to the general public. And everything does come with a cost. And those features, which are very, very convenient to the general public, and all of us in the room included, do come at an additional cost. So we have to keep that in consideration.
But the public will be paying that cost, right? That'll be added on to the public.
Well,
Additional cost.
the cost of those transactions, yes, the public would be paying those costs. However, there's internal costs involved too, as far as employees. And ultimately, yes, the public would be paying for those additional costs also.
Okay, so probably be looking out for, in the future, we'll probably be having a resolution to move that way, since we've been trying to get it for quite some time.
As long as we have everything necessary to do it in the proper, credible manner, we'll proceed, at that time.
Okay, thanks. And then the other thing I'd like to just say is I'd like to thank everybody that came out to speak in opposition of Brooks moving. There was nobody that said they thought it was a good idea, so that's what it was all about, and I'll speak more when that resolution comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. Councilman Bomano, the floor is yours.
Mark, one more question about the KBS system, or whatever system we're going to. Is there a timetable when we're going to get to there? Do you have a timetable? November, December, January, February, March?
Well, we are dependent on that company. The company is not, we're dependent on their availability to implement that part of the system.
And
That's
how
the
are we
whole-
finding out their availability? When's the last time we contacted them?
Oh, probably when Councilman Williams spoke with me, and I not only emailed, but personally spoke to our representative.
Which was when? I don't know.
Probably 3 weeks ago.
Is that something we can get on a weekly basis until they come along and let you know a timetable? Because this was in the paper, so now I'm getting the calls, and I'm getting the text message about this system, and so they're getting impatient. So you gotta know where I'm coming from.
And again, I understand it was in the local newspaper, et cetera. And, also, not only myself, but the employees in my office are dealing on a daily basis with, there are individuals that have asked, when will you be taking credit card payments, et cetera. And again, it is something we can do, but there's other parts of that process that need to be addressed prior to doing it.
Okay. So can we address them?
Well, it's something that maybe we can sit down and go over those other parts of the process.
Okay.
Certain,
Let's do that.
Okay.
Next, Randy. How's it going on Howard Avenue?
It's going well. The culvert is built, but the culvert is in Buffalo. And we want to bring it here to put it in the right place. We can't do that until National Fuel gets their gas lines out of the way. You probably have all noticed that National Fuel's working on Baton Avenue at Central Avenue, and then in order to replace the 2 gas lines that cross that culvert, they have to use Baton Avenue to get over on the west side of Crooked Brook Creek and keep all of the residents on West Howard Avenue with gas. We don't want to give them a culvert, but take away their heat and their hot water. So National Fuel's working on that. Mayor Rosas has made contacts with officials that can help speed that up at the highest levels within the state and in the company. So they're moving very rapidly to do that. They know that we have the culvert ready to put in the ground. And the other thing is that there's wires overhead that have to be moved. National Grid looked at those today, and those should be out of the way pretty soon. I'm going to hope that National Fuel will let us work around their project and start digging the hole and start putting those culverts in the ground. So we're very close.
Well, realistically, we're in mid-October. Is that a possible start time sometime this year?
We're going to have the culvert open. There's going to be able to, if we haven't been able to have emergency vehicles or fire trucks over that for almost 10 years, we're going to be able to have that open this year, absolutely. It probably won't have its finished surface this year. We want to put down a surface that's good for heavy vehicles, and then we'll do the polishing in the spring and make it look beautiful. The plan is beautiful. We don't want to rush the final details, but we want to be able to get heavy vehicles over that absolutely as soon as possible, and I believe that's happening. The culvert's already ready to go in the ground, and it's 2 utilities that are in the way, and we're pushing to get those out of the way without inconveniencing the people who live there.
Thank you. Thank you. Rebecca, update at Point, Wright Park.
Yeah, for the Point, big documents will be open in the clerk's office this Thursday to select the contractor for the job. All contractors have been notified that as soon as we select the contractor that we go with, that they're cleared to start on the project this year. So as of Thursday, once we hire someone, that they'll be able to start the work this year. Any improvements should be made and finished by Memorial Day of 2018, finishing up, but most likely that project will be done before that. For Wright Park, we're finishing up our design phase and finishing up the documents for that project, going out to bid in mid-November, and that project will be done Memorial Day of 2018, but construction will likely start in the spring.
Thank you.
So, yep.
Again, I would like to thank everyone that got up and spoke tonight on every issue. I will speak later on the hospital issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Romano. Councilman Gonzalez?
First of all, I find it so odd that it's taken us so long to get this credit card issue established in the city of Dunkirk. I pay 99% of my bills online. Everybody, just about everybody in the world now pays their bill online, at any place. The city, our department that's in charge of that is taking so long, and I don't know why. You mentioned staffing, you mentioned training, you mentioned...
We'll start number one with staffing issues, which
Great.
I've addressed with you.
I heard
Number one.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I sold the machines before for a credit card company. They supply the staffing, they supply the training necessary for doing all of that, including the online.
Correct.
So I don't know why would it take so long to get that done?
The staffing situation, the mayor and I have discussed it. It's something that we're working on. Decision has not been made. But in order to handle it properly, you need adequate staffing. Number one.
Yeah, but we haven't seen any initiative from your department to this.
Well, I'm still down one full-time employee, Councilman.
Excuse me?
My office is down one full-time employee. The position has been open for 2.5 years. It's not been filled.
I understand that, but we've been addressing this since 2012. We've been working on this. It's taking that long?
That's how long we've had the vacancy in the office, yes.
I think that somebody's dragging their feet over there with it. I understand that you need more personnel to help you with the issue, but I think it's something that's way beyond its time. That we shouldn't be requesting that at this time. My next question is to Randy. In regards to the leaf pickup, when are we starting that? And when are we going to pick up the leaves at Washington Park?
I don't know why you ask about Washington
Forget
Park.
Street.
No, in our recycling calendar, and we address the issue of leaves, and leaves are something we can't control. So it says, as the season develops, we will develop that schedule. And I'm looking out through the window right now, it's still got some light out there, and those leaves are still hanging on. They look beautiful. The whole city has a fall pastel color to it. So we're leaving them alone, no pun intended. And we will get them when they start to fall. Again, no pun intended. We will make a schedule and we'll address them. Any particular ward you'd like us to start in?
Second ward, be good.
Okay.
The reason that I mentioned it is that I know you can say in chat that it can wait, but it doesn't. Because one of the reasons is if you lived in Washington, or you lived in Park Avenue, or you lived on 6th, and 5th next to the park yesterday. When that wind was blowing, all these were flying all the way into the neighbors' yards. You know, they were asking, how come we don't contract again with the criminal system that come in and pick up the leaves and so on, with Lakeview and so on. What happened to that? Because they used to come and clean them up and so on. Make it easier in the city. Where are we on that?
We could do that, and what the Parks Department will take care of the leaves in Washington Park. I didn't mean to diminish that. It's the park. I think that we've extended the parks use. You may have noticed that in the 4th Ward we've addressed the railroad tracks along Franklin Avenue. I asked the Parks Department to add that to the park that they have on the Franklin Avenue Boulevard. They've done that. It's a first pass, and I think it looks good. So they're going to do the same type of thing to Washington Park. But the leaf situation, you want to get them when they're all down. And you're going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So they're still, right now they're pretty much up there, and when they're all pretty much down, then we start picking them up.
Well, to let you know, you should have come down to Washington Park yesterday. When the wind was blowing and when the rain was coming down, and the leaves were coming down pretty good.
Okay.
Okay, so please see if you can address that as soon as possible. Also, in regards to, I don't know if any of you did not attend the economic development meeting that we had today. A lot of people are always asking what's happening in economic development. And we had an extensive meeting today, which we brought out. Rebecca brought up a lot of the grants and everything and what we're doing in the city. And it was a very intense meeting that we had and very informative. Would have been glad to have it televised, but we didn't. I'm hoping that for the next meeting we can have it televised so people can see it that weren't able to come. But if Rebecca can address some of the presentation that she had in regards to the board presentation and so on, and the comprehensive plan that they came up with, and also the addressing the zombie properties. It was something that it's very important to our city in regards to out-of-town people that own property in here and how they are not taking care of it, and where we're going with that in regards to the Floramo initiative. And I hope that Rebecca can go a little bit on what we discussed today, please.
Sure. Well, we're in the final process of wrapping up our Brownfield Opportunity Area Phase 2 plan, and what that does is that specifically looks at brownfield and vacant sites throughout the city. We identified 15 sites, and we came up with different projects, different planning initiatives to redevelop these sites. This plan is an opportunity to incentivize the developers to get tax incentives to develop and redevelop on these brownfield sites. So once we're a BOA designated community, which once the council adopts the plan, once the Department of State adopts the plan, that means we're a BOA designated community, and these developers can get the incentives to redevelop on brownfield sites. So we are pushing for different companies and jobs to locate here so that we can create more jobs in our community and get these sites developed.
What about handicap people?
In addition, we're also, I just went into detail about the DRI and our grant application that won the $2.5 million. This was based on the BOA plan, and we went into further detail about some of the smaller items that we've been working on, such as the farmers market. We'll be holding a market dinner in November, so we can give you more details if you just call our department. We have all that information, so thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca. And for those of you who did not attend, and I hope that the media can be at the next meeting, will be on November 21st. Please come and get a good, all the information that you need in regards for economic development and what they're doing, and all the plans that we have for the city of Dunkirk. I'd also like to address a little bit in regards to the hospital. I wish that we were able to have more input in regards to their decision, or even in regards to being part of the committee that they had in finding out the place that they came up with, but we weren't able to. You know, they wanted to do that on their own. They had their own people that they picked for the location, And we all know that it's a terrible location. The city of Dunkirk, it's one of the cities where most people walk to a lot of people walk to the hospitals. You know, a lot of people don't have the transportation to get to the hospital, even when they're not feeling well. You know, I like to see how easy or what's going to happen when somebody doesn't have transportation and has to go up to Route 20 to get service. I think it's a terrible decision, and I think that as all you mentioned here, that should be reconsidered, and we'll continue to do the best we can to try to stop that from happening or letting them know how we feel, and that's all.
Thank you, Councilman Gonzalez. Councilwoman Shikawa?
Yes, our next public safety meeting was supposed to be on the 19th, but due to a calendar issue, it will be on the 26th at 4 o'clock in the conference room. It is open to the public. Randy, thank you very much for Hoyt Street, as well as the Franklin Avenue grass. I know you've only been in your position for a very short time, and I appreciate all the efforts that you're giving to all of us with our concerns and issues, and your crew as well, so thank you. I have a suggestion for next year when you're preparing the calendar. I've gotten a lot of calls over my years here asking if we could possibly add an additional brush pickup. In the past, it's always been a manpower issue, but I do notice on the calendar that we have several bulk pickups that were added, which I think were needed. However, my suggestion for next year would be to take one of those bulk pickup Mondays away and add an additional week of brush pickup towards the end. Like you said, right now, the next one's going to be leaves, and I still know people that are cutting branches and trees and different things down, and they have a hard time getting them over to the barns. So my suggestion would be to possibly add one if that is able to be done so. Are there any finishing details on Hoyt Street, or are we completely all buttoned up?
We're pretty much buttoned up. We gave the flow test for the fire hydrant to the chief of police. I'm sorry, the chief of fire, and maybe the chief of police too. But I think we have good fire hydrants there. Would you agree, Chief?
Yes.
Yeah, we used to have no fire protection on the 300 block of Hoyt Street, and we tested them, and they're all going to be at least a Class B rated hydrant, which we went from 0 to a B grade hydrant, so good for residential use. We have 3 of them, where we used to have none.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Shikawa. Mr. Gonzalez brought up basically everything I was going to say. I've been a huge fan of our development department underneath Rebecca, whether it be her previous team that she brought to the table and the mayor brought to the table, or her current team as well. And I know at last council meeting, I threw Mr. Gonzalez under the bus by inviting the entire public to his meeting. But just to piggyback what he said, we were presented with all kinds of graphs and forms and everything today, and the reason I have these handy is because the meeting was today, but every single one of these line items on these 4 sheets is a different thing that's going on in the city of Dunkirk. It's either an event, it's a grant, it's a pay down, it's infrastructure, it's development. Every single one of these, with the exception of 2 or 3 that may overlap from sheet to sheet, is something different that's going on in the city of Dunkirk. So although you may read the newspaper on a daily basis and may seem like Nicole noted in the article for me the other day in the newspaper, it may seem like nothing's going on, but there's actually a ton that's going on. And I would love to have more public attend Mr. Gonzalez's economic development meeting, because I can't say enough about Rebecca and her department and what she's done. Obviously, you could tell she's very passionate about the city and what she does. So, and obviously Hector's very passionate about his cause as well, so being personally affected by it. So just wanted to give props to them and invite everybody back to Mr. Gonzalez's economic development meeting. And I have a finance committee meeting, which public never shows up to, at 4 p.m. this Thursday, in case anybody would like to swing by for that as well. That is all I have. That is all I have. Unfinished business, number 96.
Resolution to consent to initiate charter revision, creation of Human Resources Director position.
Before we start on discussion with that, I'm going to ask City Attorney Morris Rowe to comment on his findings that may answer a lot of your questions and concerns that you voiced here tonight during the public hearings. Mr. Morris Rowe.
Thank you, Councilman Lerch. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you for your patience. Got a lot to cover, and that's because a lot's going on in the city. So kudos to all those who've been involved in all the positive things happening here in Dunkirk. First thing I wanted to address is there was a question as to whether we needed to do a referendum or not with regards to the charter revisions proposed in these three referendums. I'm sorry, in these three resolutions, numbers 96 through 98. And the question is no. The charter under Dunkirk defers to the general municipal home law, or the home rule law, that's part of New York State law. And under that, under Section 23, there's certain types of changes that require mandatory referendum. And just to run through that list briefly, under Section 2, if we were doing a new charter for the city, if we were changing the membership or the composition of the legislative body, that would be a mandatory referendum issue. If we were changing the veto power of the city's chief executive, in this case the mayor, if we were changing the laws of succession in regards to the office of the elected officials of the city or the county, that would require a mandatory referendum. If we were abolishing an elective office, and this goes to, I believe, Mr. Maleshko's question at the last council meeting, because I believe there were 2 assessors and now there's 1, that entails a mandatory referendum. Issues about creating a new elective office requires a mandatory referendum. Changes in any laws regarding public utility franchises requires that. Changing compensation for city elected officials would require a mandatory referendum. And any changes in law regarding membership or terms of office of the Civil Service Commission, which we no longer have, would require a referendum because we've since shopped that out to the county of Chautauqua. There's also the next section, Section 24 of that law, talks about other issues that aren't necessarily mandatory, but that if we want to address them via petition, could or should be dealt with via petition. And those are issues such as questions regarding public notice of hearings, regarding official actions, changes regarding assessments of real property, changes regarding exercise of the power of condemnation or eminent domain, changes in provisions of the law regarding bonding issuance in terms of local finance, changes regarding audits of local government accounts, changes regarding alienation or leasing of real property of local government. That's an interesting one because in conversations with Mr. Maleshko, the question came up, what do we do with city-owned property that we didn't acquire via interim auction? And my legal intern and I did some research, and there's absolutely nothing in the city code or the city charter that addresses that issue. We don't have a process in place if somebody wants to buy the empty lot next to them that the city owns. Now, we have to do something about that, so we will probably be introducing a resolution soon to address that. Thankfully, a lot of other cities of the Rust Belt, like Dunkirk, have this issue. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we have to tailor a law that perhaps Buffalo has, or Cheektowaga, or Cleveland, etc., that we can use here in Dunkirk. Because that's an issue, and there's a lot of those types of lots that people want. But they don't make sense to have an auction about or to have a public auction for. None of the 3 changes here regarding a personnel change or a change for an appointed position require referendum. Change to the language or a job description, which was 97, the personal administrator job description, does not require public referendum. And the final one, regarding just reflecting the de facto or what already actually exists versus what's on paper in regards to the zoning and building officer position, does not require public referendum. Now, there was another issue regarding the question that was raised at the last council meeting regarding whether we could essentially shop out the entire HR department to the Chautauqua County Human Resources Department. So we sent that question, and we received an email response from Ms. Wisniewski, who is the director of the Department of Human Resources in Chautauqua County. And I quote, Upon reviewing the responsibilities of all current and proposed HR personnel in the city of Dunkirk, the county would be unable to manage all aspects of the city of Dunkirk's personnel functions. The county HR department has minimal staff and is unable to manage those functions for the city without additional staff. With that said, regardless of what decision is made concerning the structure of the city of Dunkirk, any civil service matter will continue to be supported and authorized by the county. So the answer is no. They're not going to do it. And if they did, under that same state law, they would have to do a charter referendum accepting that power, and then your county taxes, somebody mentioned their county taxes, would go up to pay for that, because that's how that works. Now, somebody else mentioned their county taxes being a proportionate smaller share of their tax bill than their city taxes. And again, this is just factual, so I'm not giving you an opinion. If you look at the tax bill of any property in Western New York, that is the case. I do a fair amount of real estate closings in my private practice, and I can tell you that in all the cities and suburbs and towns that I have done a closing in Western New York, the city tax bill is higher than the county tax bill. And then the school tax bill is usually the second highest, and then the county is the third. That's just how it is, regardless of municipality. That's not a Dunkirk issue. That's a New York State tax issue. The next issue was the question of the cost of an HR director. And a lot of people were worried about additional cost and how it would impact the budget, and it seemed exorbitant. So I did a little homework on that. My Ernst Weil, SUNY Fredonia intern, excellent intern, and we did a little searching. Now, the national average for a human resource director of a municipality is $108,000 a year. In Dunkirk, we currently have a personnel administrator who's part-time, who makes quite a bit less than that, and we have a population of roughly 12,000 people. In Batavia, New York, the population is roughly 14,000 people, and the HR director makes $65,645 a year. In Jamestown, with a population of roughly 29,000 people, the HR head makes $95,184 a year. In Geneva, New York, with a population of $12,988, the HR head makes $76,265 a year. In Niagara Falls, with a shrinking population, but yet a population of 48,000, the HR head makes $89,135 a year. And in Kenmore, which we took as an outlier, it's $15,000, Village of Kenmore, which sits inside the town of Tonawanda, north of the city of Buffalo. They actually outsource their HR department to a private provider, a company by the name of Alcott HR. So we just noted that as something that's a little out of the box. I can tell you that in every job position, anybody who does HR, anybody who's had to look for jobs in various fields, there's a market for every job, whether it's an HR job, whether it's a garbage man job, or whether it's working at Target. There's a certain price range for all those jobs. And if you're used to a certain price range based on your own personal experience, listening to the price range for a different position can be a little bit jarring. We talk about the prices of professional athletes. And some of us wish our kids were professional football players or basketball players because the money they make is otherworldly. And yet at the same time we complain about it. But guess who pays for those salaries? It's not taxes. We pay it with television rights. We pay it with television advertising. We buy the jerseys. We buy the tickets. We go to all the games and the special events. We go to the ticket signings. That money, as amazing as it is actually earned. And so it all depends. Everything's relative. And I'll leave you with this last note. On a personal note, I'm the child of the Rust Belt, East Chicago, Indiana. I've lived in Buffalo, New York for the last 20 years as a resident of the Rust Belt, and now I serve you, the city of Dunkirk, another spot on the Rust Belt. And I can tell you, I get it when I hear the nostalgia of what was, how it used to be, and there's a fear. There's a fear of the unknown. There's a fear of change. And I saw how negatively that affected my hometown. I saw how it affected most of Buffalo the last 20 years. And I can tell you that if you just base your decisions or your opposition to things just based on fear, you're limiting yourself. We limit the future of what this city could be. There's an interesting book I read to my son back some years ago by Richard Paul Evans called The Spyglass. I highly recommend it. Essentially, it's a question of perception. And the question that we have to present to ourselves as the public, as elected officials, as city employees is, what do we envision for the Dunkirk of tomorrow? Now, if we get stuck on the cost of an HR director, then we can't move forward. That's not the way we did things. But if we look at what that HR director can do for Dunkirk, just like look at what an amazing job our development director has done for the city of Dunkirk. And she's underpaid, by the way, if you look at the market for development directors in other cities of similar size. You say, wow, that's worth it. HR director alone, I'll give you 2 examples and then I'll stop because it's been a long night already. On the legal side, if we get sued because of grievance issues, whether we have a complaint with a union, and we have to bring in outside counsel, the cheapest outside counsel that the city can find is going to charge the city roughly $200 an hour for its services. The more expensive top of the line, Hodgson Russ folks, $400 an hour. In short order, on one grievance, that could cost the city $10,000 to $25,000 for one case. If you have an HR director who's experienced in union negotiations and handling grievances, that cost can be avoided. If you have an HR director who can give training and set policy for things such as cell phone use, technology use, sexual assault, those are all issues, cases, potential liability against the city that the city can avoid in legal costs, insurance premiums for the city. So I would just caution, I hear you on the cost. It's a little jarring, but you got to think about the bigger picture. And there's a reason why sometimes you have to spend a little to get a little.
Thank you, Mr. Morrisroe. Hopefully we're not paying you by the hour. Okay, resolution number 96, as the clerk read, resolution to consent to initiate charter revision, creation of human resources director position. I need a motion to take it off the table. No motion to take it off the table. It will sit there for another council meeting. Number 97.
Resolution to change personnel administrator job duties to reflect actual compensation and benefits focus.
Anything you'd like to say about this one, Mr. Morrisroe? Same thing?
Again, just quickly. In most cities, you got somebody who focuses on compensation and benefits, retirement, et cetera, deferred compensation. It's a pretty big field. Roger happens to have expertise in that field. But the field of human resources has grown exponentially in a lot of years in terms of the issues that cities, companies have to deal with. So you need somebody who specializes in that, but most cities also have somebody who's a director who sees, again, the macro level issues of human resources.
Thank you, Mr. Morrisroe. I need a motion to take it off the table. Seeing no first, it'll sit on the table again. Just a reminder to everybody, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Morrisroe, well, I will ask again at the next council meeting for both of those. If they do not come off the table at that time, they will both die. Is that correct?
Let me just check my notes here. I'll be right back with you on that one.
Okay. Number 98.
Resolution to consent to initiate charter revisions, clarification on code enforcement and zoning officer position.
Motion to take that off the table. Mr. Bomano with the first. Councilwoman Ishikawa with the second. Clerk, call the roll on the motion to take it off the table.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Ishikawa?
Aye.
Councilmember at large Wishin.
Aye. We are now voting on the motion itself. Now that it is off. Oh, I'm sorry, discussion. You are correct. Mr. Williams, discussion.
I just wanted to clarify, for lack of better words to use, this is basically a house cleaning item, like it's already being done this way, and we just need to change the language to put it in that way, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Shikawa?
I just wanted to make sure the same thing, that we were just quote-unquote changing wordage and verbiage, that making it affect what Al actually does.
Exactly.
Okay. And Al, just so everybody knows, I did reach out to you, and I wanted to know if you had any concerns, questions with this being done, and you said not at the time, as long as it was just clarifying your job duties a little bit better, you were okay.
Right, there seems to be a movement as to where it's placed in the charter.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll now vote on the resolution number 98. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Wishes.
Aye. Pre-filed resolutions, number 99.
Resolution consenting to appointment of full-time fiscal affairs officer.
Any discussion, council? Councilwoman Shikawa?
Boy, this is a tough meeting to be at with all you folks here, but this should be no surprise to anybody that when I sit here and go over these resolutions, my biggest concern is protecting the budget and trying to do what our department's heads have said for quite some time, is doing more with less. And although I have had conversations with the mayor and I completely understand the need to have a full-time fiscal affairs officer, which we have had in the past, but for me, it really comes down to money. And I know that you know, Mr. Morris Rowe, the points that you made were very well taken. But I've sat here for almost 8 years now, and I've seen some things happen that shouldn't have, and vice versa. And one of the things that I think we need to make sure that we know that moving forward with this, because I'm pretty sure I might be the only one voting no tonight, is that the transition period, what are the terms of that? I know we're not going to leave the new person, you know, with no help, but I know that there was some issues what we had in the workshop, but it didn't make it to a walk-in resolution. So I think that,
Yes.
so maybe I'm wrong, we do have a walk-in resolution, folks. But anyways, for myself tonight, I'll be voting no, because I just don't think that this time we have the money to do so.
Any further discussion on number 99? Mayor?
I just want to reiterate that the position has been budgeted full-time. We did try a part-time fiscal affairs officer. And again, this is an appointed position which has been budgeted for according to charter and by resolution, which council has passed for a full-time position. I don't know if the councilwoman remembers that, but you did vote yes for a full-timer. And that's the way the budget has been proposed and read. So this will not be an increase in any budget line.
Any further discussion?
We'll agree to disagree. That's okay.
The only thing I would like to add is I'm going to be voting no on this. I have spoken with the mayor about it personally. He understands where I come from. I understand where he comes from. I'm a huge fan of the, well, now former finance officer and the work that she has done. And this has nothing, my vote has nothing to do with Mrs. Beach. I've never had a conversation with Mrs. Beach, so I don't know Mrs. Beach, but I'm just going to vote no on this for that purpose alone. Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
No.
Councilmember at-large Washington.
No. Resolution passes. Number 100.
Resolution establishing 2017 Halloween trick-or-treat hours.
Any discussion, council? Seeing none, clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Washington.
Aye. Number 101.
Resolution changing the common council meeting for the first meeting in November 2017.
Any discussion, council? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ishikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Wishes.
Aye. Number 102,
Resolution opposing the moving Brooks Hospital to Pomfret.
any discussion, council? Councilman Williams?
I know the mayor, Rebecca, and the development department team has done everything that they could to try to offer and keep the Brooks Hospital in the city of Dunkirk. My purpose for putting this resolution up here today is I figured that would, with the paper putting it in there, that, you know, we could have some comment on it. I wanted to get the people to come out and speak their opinion on it, and that definitely worked. And I want to definitely move forward with sending a copy of the resolution and the minutes to the meeting to the governor and to Assemblyman Goodell and to Senator Kathy Young. And hopefully maybe they can think about it and maybe put some pressure on Brooks to reconsider. I definitely know that that's about all we can do is put pressure on them to try to reconsider. But if everybody out there is making phone calls to their statewide elected officials to put the same pressure on, then maybe we can get this thing done. I definitely oppose the move, just so that I can get that officially on the record. And that's why I did this. And again, I'd like to thank everybody that came out and spoke in favor of opposing the move by Brooks. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilman Bamanto?
Yes, like Councilman Williams says, I'm totally against this move. I mean, great job by the mayor, development department. 3 proposed sites we gave them. They didn't want to come here. They didn't want to stay here. Then the worst thing about it, they wanted to be centrally located close to Dunkirk, close to Fredonia, Route 60. And they picked this horrible location. I can't emphasize more. It's a horrible location. And I'm just so angry about it. That's all I can say about it.
Thank you, Councilman Bamanto. Councilman Gonzalez?
Just to echo the sentiments of everybody here, I think there's nobody in this room that's in favor of their decision. But we tried all that we could here in this council, but they made their decision. We tried as hard as we could. We proposed several locations. They decided where they wanted to go, So now it's up to the public, as he mentioned, you know, write to your congresspeople, write to your senator, and let them know how you feel. Because it's definitely, as he said, a terrible location. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ishikawa?
I don't know if many of you remember, but a few short years ago, we sat in this very room when Brooks announced that they were going to close. We weren't going to have a hospital. Do you remember that? They were in such financial straits that they couldn't afford to keep the hospital open. So we were in fear of losing our hospital altogether. So fast forward to today, the state is dangling $73 million in front of them with no strings attached. If the state had that kind of money, first of all, in my opinion, it should go towards incentives for consolidating bridges and roads. But that's not our decision. So fast forward to today yet again, and if they had $73 million, the string should have been attached that we'll give you this money, you need to stay right where you're at, and we'll make this a top-of-the-line hospital, because it could be done. Give them half the money if that's the case. The hospital has been here since it's been built. I don't even think that it should have been moved anywhere in the city of Dunkirk. I mean, Mayor, I've asked you many meetings, have you had any updates? I mean, for those of them paying attention to the newspaper and watching the meetings, we have been asking. We also requested as a council to meet with the people at the hospital, and we were denied that right. The mayor had an opportunity to do so, but the council did not. So if that hospital, as though they say they're going to find somebody to quote-unquote occupy the hospital, if it's good enough for somebody else to occupy, such as Fidelis or somebody out of Buffalo, then why isn't it good enough for Brooks to continue to occupy with upgrades? It's the most ridiculous thing and waste of tax dollars I have ever seen in my life. So yes, we have been trying, and all of us have been getting the phone calls. We had absolutely no say in any of this, and neither did Fredonia, as far as we're told. So yes, unfortunately, I don't know. Mayor, remember when the folks wanted the cold storage not to be put in their backyard from Fieldbrook Foods, those folks got together and got an attorney. We were served with papers. That's gone. That was enough to say we don't want to have the cold storage on that unit. Now we're going to be putting it elsewhere. So why can't the city of Dunkirk do, or the residents do the same thing? Is that a possibility?
The city of Dunkirk residents will have no say in the hospital leaving. This was a cold storage warehouse that was coming, so they had a say because it was coming. But now that it's leaving, it would be up to the residents of that community to do the same thing.
In my mind, the concept was the same, though. I mean, you know, either you want something or you don't. So it was just one last effort that I thought maybe would work. But no, I want everybody to know that we have done our part, and unfortunately, that wasn't enough. So that's all I have.
Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at large Wishin.
Aye. Number 10, new business. We have a walk-in resolution that Mr. Morris Rowe just handed us.
Resolution 103, 2017, October 17, 2017, by entire council. You read the entire resolution, sir?
No.
Consent to a temporary appointment of part-time fiscal affairs consultant.
Any discussion, council? Councilman Williams?
Yeah, we get a lot of these walk-ins, and then this is going to affect some money and stuff like that, so I'd like to make a motion to table it.
I have a motion to table. Do I have a second? Second. Councilwoman Shikawa with a second. Please call the roll on the table.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto?
No.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
No.
Councilmember Shikawa?
Aye.
Councilmember at large Wishin.
Aye. Motion is tabled till next council meeting.
Councilmember Leonard,
Yes.
I was just looking up the question you had regarding how long it takes once an item is tabled for it to go away. I checked the common council rules. There's no rule on that. I'm just not sure where you guys get that in terms of a time limit or amount of times it's tabled.
Okay, we will.
Is that Robert's rule or
Yeah.
whatever?
I've always wondered that.
For two.
It's just not reflected in the charter or the rules. That's an appendix to the charter. That's why I was just questioning.
I believe it's Robert's Rules of Order, but we'll research that in time being. This has been a very long meeting with a lot of important topics discussed today. Public forum is over, dear. Sorry. This has been a very long meeting with a lot of important topics discussed today and a lot of business done. Fortunately for you guys, you are dismissed. Unfortunately for us, we have to go into executive session. So please call the roll to go into executive session.
Councilmember Williams.
Motion to go into executive session. I'm sorry, who had the motion for executive session? Councilman Gonzalez? Councilman Bamanto with the second. Call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at large Wishin.
Aye. Yep. Who wants these? Who wants these files? You want these, sir? That's a long one. Now we get to the fire hall.
And you did good luck. Never mind.